All right, welcome to the Boost Conversations with people promoting mental health. And I'm really stoked to be here today with Patrick Dunn, who's the Chief Strategy Officer from Hansi Solutions. Patrick, how are you doing today?
Steve, doing great, man. Good to find some time with you.
Yeah, excellent. We've been crossing paths here lately, more and more, which I'm excited about. So it's good to see you here today. We've got some great questions lined up, and you've got a bunch of great experience that we're going to talk through. Probably not all of it today in the next 30-45 minutes. But we'll get into a lot of it. And right off the top, we do a couple questions that are coming your way just to get things started. It's the virtual hug and the shameless plug. So the virtual hug is tell us somebody or something that you're grateful for today.
Yeah, Steve. So I on Thursdays, I'm real lucky. I've got a men's group that I go to really early, 6 a.m. Um, and it's really helped me with obviously support, but perspective. I think that life can get real busy, and I can get real focused on this has to happen this way, and this has to happen right now, and to be able to take a step back and kind of get vulnerable with other men really helps me have some perspective and kind of gives me some patience to just kind of let life unfold the way it's supposed to.
Hmm. Is that's man. I talk a lot about kind of peer support groups,
Yeah,
and and there's a wide range of what that means. Some are structured around a certain concept. Some are simply just people getting together,
right.
and kind of having that antidote to loneliness. But it sounds like for you, the perspective matters. Tell me a little bit more about what you're gleaning from um, the interactions, maybe specifically or just generally, but why do you hone in on perspective as the thing that's coming out of that for you?
Yeah. So what's important to me is that I'm involved in a group that doesn't that is wide open, right? That is just about bettering each other. I think at work great. I work with great people, right? But we have very clear goals, business goals. In other organizations, we have very clear goals to be able to be involved in a group of peers with the goal only being improve ourselves. It really allows you to kind of dive a little deeper on what it is that you want to improve on yourself as a man or as a woman, right? Without the just taking a break from life goals and life responsibilities. It's like a little oasis I have in the mornings on Thursday, and I really value it.
I love that. Sounds like you're in a space where you can be as much of yourself as you can be or want to be, and be real and open and honest
Yeah,
about what you're going through without maybe some of those incentive hooks or those incentive you know they can be obstacles that get in our way
yeah,
in terms of how we're really looking at ourselves and what's going
yeah.
on. Yeah, we've themed this year's mental health marketing conference, which you all are going to be a big part
Yeah,
of.
excited
We're
about
grateful
that.
for
Yeah,
that. Yeah, we're excited too. Especially because we're right in your backyard. Hansi, in Franklin, Tennessee, although it had some California roots, and so do I. I came from over from the West Coast, maybe 15 plus years ago. Time flies, but yeah, you all are involved in our theme this year is unmasking, and that's not to say you need to tell everything to everyone all the time, but it does mean that real work gets done when we can identify sort of source of truth, or first cause kind of problems, and really get real with digging into the why behind it. Because and you can speak to this more eloquently than I can for sure, but in addiction treatment and behavioral health and mental health, a lot of times we mistake the um, sort of the symptom for the root cause, and sometimes we mistake the band-aid for the root cause.
yeah, yeah, 100%. So, like you said, excited to be with at MHM. As a company, based in Franklin. That was important to us, definitely in our backyard. Also over the last couple of years, we're really seeing this surge in people needing to access care for mental health, and we're lucky to be positioned as a company to help people with access to care, to help companies to help understand, parity, to help understand, the insurance requirements, because primary mental health, especially at the lower levels, is kind of overlooked. I mean, substances, it's easy. You're doing a substance, you get in trouble, your family's on you, go get help,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Mental health can really kind of creep up to you, and you're totally right. We can use band-aids, and then we might replace the band-aid, but the core is still there, right? And we
Mhm.
know if we don't fix that, we'll continue to look at maladaptive ways to cope with it and struggle. So I really would appreciate it when we first started talking to say, hey, we're going to have this emphasis on both mental health treatment, and expanding, and how do we expand these brands in mental health, which is going to help people access more treatment. So
Yeah.
shameless plug for the for the
That's
MHM, and we're glad to be it. But for me, it's been an interesting journey being in long term recovery for over 20 years and working in the field for 20 years, to watch how treatment has evolved, over the time. And I really like where we are with a lot of momentum of identifying and helping people, um, get help for mental health issues in the beginning, right? We want to intervene at a prevention like level. You don't need to wait, right? You don't need to wait
yeah.
until it gets too bad. We really want to be able to intervene. We want people to be able to access care. We want insurance companies to be able to pay for it, right? For people to intervene at a lower level, with the hopes that they can, make some change.
Hmm. Well, thank you for the shameless plug, and I want to make sure we hit on yours too, and you're
Yeah.
circling it. But things like rev cycle management and parity and EMRs, these things have some complexity to it. So if you wouldn't mind to just sort of break it down a little bit, what Hansi is doing,
Yeah.
I think it's really beneficial for the audience or the listener to kind of understand that foundation of what you all have built.
Yeah, 100%. So I'm an operator, right? I come from the operator space. I've done everything in treatment. Like a lot of people in treatment, got sober and started as a tech, went back to school, was a therapist and a director, and had a lot of fun as a owner operator and a founder of programs. But what you also learn is you learn the real pain points, right? And revenue cycle is a big pain point. Where we are right now, working with insurance companies has never been harder as a provider. There's a big shift in out of network and in network. There's a lot of payer requirements that are changing. You're looking at factors, and people are trying to grow and scale. Insurance is just really hard, right? And I think maybe 5 years ago, everybody said, "Oh, we can do this. We can do everything." And then what we're finding now is you can't, right? And there's some things in the treatment space that you most definitely want to look at outsourcing. You know, Marketing and brand might be one of them. Revenue cycle might be one of them. And for people that are interested in that, we're interested in helping in our knowledge base. So if you think about it, it's like having a revenue cycle department that has 500 times the knowledge, as we work in like 40 states with over 250 people. So the it's the knowledge that you gain from just doing more billing through insurance is how we know this stuff, right? Because a lot of the rules and the requirements aren't published. You just kind of back into them. So we've really grown as a company. I came on beginning of 2021
Yeah.
with only the knowledge of the pain points. I said, listen, I don't know a lot how to do it right, but I know how to do it wrong, right? I really know the pain points. And so I've been able to go along with our kind of our experts, the experts in the field, the team, and kind of empathize with where, these parent companies are coming from. Hey, listen, I get it. It's hard to staff. It's hard to understand. It's hard to know and the knowledge. And we've been very successful with coming alongside centers and partnering with them, and then helping them do what they want to do, which is grow and serve more people.
Yeah. I think that's such a deep, beautiful truth in this space and others, as it relates to two things. One is generally you knew the pain points
Yeah.
of the business side. And we also see it across the board in the recovery space. Is there's a lot of incredible people doing amazing work because they've experienced the pain themselves. And it's one thing to read about it in a textbook. You know, you got your PhD, I think, in what is that, equine therapy, or was that
No,
another
so so
focus?
so I studied for my PhD in psychology and research. My
Okay.
dissertation, a lot of my study that I chose to do on equine therapy because I love horses and experiential therapy, so it just made sense.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I want to talk a little bit more about that. This thing right here is a horse figurine from my daughter. She loves to ride horses. She rides these big old Rocky Mountain horses, they're called. So we can get more into that. But anyway, back to the point of, it's one thing to read about something in a book. It's another thing to have that experiential, that lived experience that we can't underestimate. I think as much as you know, as it is critically important to have the clinical expertise and rigor and mindset as well. We see so many ripples of change happen once you identify a problem, whether it's a simple problem that just gets overlooked, or a kind of a rock in your shoe kind of thing, or a very complex problem. So for you to be able to come to the table with a full breadth of experience across the industry, I mean, you were instrumental at this probably early on at Journey Pure. I think was one of the organizations that you saw grow into a tremendous organization and
Mhm.
and quite the scale. But for you to bring that into the room is, it's you just can't undervalue the lived experience both in behavioral health and in the industry that you're trying to work in, which happens to also be behavioral health.
Yeah, 100%, man. Lived experience gives you a lot of knowledge, but with it comes sometimes the opposite of humility, right? So you think, I made this, I created this, I got this, right? And it's
Mm.
hard sometimes to be able to point out your own flaws, right? And but when you have like a good friend or somebody that you trust, when they point it out, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. So for us, Hansi, as a revenue cycle partner, we come in and we say, hey, listen, like, let us look, right? Let us tell you what you're doing better. And there's some areas that when we come in and look, we say, hey, you're doing really good here, right? Let's not mess it. You're doing really good, and you are fantastic, right? Not so much over here. Let's look at fixing that. And there's no one-stop solution for everybody. A lot of times we'll come in and help with one part. We'll help with kind of another part. I mean, our goal is to optimize you running on kind of full health, right? And as we evolve really over the last decade with private equity being a lot more involved in these larger companies, they're looking for efficiency, you know, and sometimes the owner operator, and I'm guilty myself, it's hard to make decisions that aren't based on emotion, right? And
Hmm.
need and recovery in the way it should be. So this combination of um, treatment being more business minded, right, in
Yeah.
addition to more mission driven, is we're right at kind of the inflex right now, and we can really help organizations do both, right? And
Yeah.
the truth is, and the result of that is at people's access to treatment.
That makes me think of a book. And maybe you've read it. I would love to know maybe later what you're reading too. But it's called Predictable Success. Have you read that?
No, I have not, but I will.
Okay. 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 It's a great one that talks about sort of this arc of a business that begins with one concept is it's called flock ball, which is if you've ever watched a kid's soccer game, like 4 or 5 years old, everyone is hovered around the ball and they're all hyper collaborating or trying to move this ball forward. And we see it in immature organizations or young organizations. And I think fractally, we could apply this to the behavioral health industry, perhaps. I'm curious if this plays. I've never talked about this out loud in a podcast, but it's syncing up. So, as the company grows, you move from this like really fun early struggle stage to something called whitewater, where you have to either adapt or die. Basically, it gets really rough because there's a lack of codified processes, essentially, in the systems that we are trying to scale, and you can't scale with an owner operator with everything in their head, and very few, supportive software or service solutions.
Yeah.
And then we move toward a process, and sort of the keystone of that arch is predictable success, where
Yep.
you have the right systems running, but you're not so over processed that you get into what we see can happen with maybe governments or massive organizations, where this sort of treadmill is kind of the stage to let you know you've maybe gone too far with process, and then there's kind of a death rattle after that, where you're just, so there's a spectrum, and you kind of want to be centered across that. And it sounds like from your perspective, as I'm hearing it, this industry, behavioral health, let's call it, is sort of still, it may be in that whitewater stage, moving toward better processes and systems.
Yeah, totally agree. And I've been lucky to be involved with growing a few companies and have more experience on doing it the not optimal way than doing it the
Yep.
optimal way. I'm an EOS guy, right? I
Yeah,
love
let's go.
love EOS, love traction, and that's, I mean, in level up. There's a bunch of stuff, but it's all based on the same components. When you're a startup led by an entrepreneur, it's crazy. Everybody has a couple hats on because there's only three of you. But then as you grow to evolve and mature, you're totally right. Now we need systems. Now we need KPIs. Now everybody needs to be really clear of the company vision, the company goal, and then their own goals. And then we need to talk about it once a week, and we need to check in, and we need to have a process of solving and to-dos and follow-up. So it doesn't matter
Yeah.
what system you use. I mean, they're all pretty much the core components of the same communication, vision, goals, making sure. And then what you can, when as that evolves, not everybody works good in those systems, and that's okay. It says, I mean, one of the biggest things is find the right seat on the bus for people. Sometimes there's another seat on the bus for somebody, and sometimes there's not a seat on the bus for that person, and that's okay,
Yeah,
right? And
that's good to
and,
great,
and
right? Is
to
that
let that person go to really find another bus, right, is the right thing to do. And that's hard to do from just kind of an entrepreneur by themselves, so to have a system in place. But you're totally correct, right? And I think that overall behavioral health has been slower to evolve in that business minded growth process systematically, but over these last couple of years it really has. And I think that we'll continue to see the growth of the parent company, and the growth of more in network, and Medicaid options for people.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry to jump in there. I think that was a good to great reference. Is that right? Jim Collins, the right people on the bus in the right seats.
Right
Maybe
seats, yeah.
that's used in a number of ways. I love that analogy. And I really like EOS. I'm not, and I know you can engage a coach and things like that. On our business side, oh man, like, I totally relate to what you're saying. Having, I've run the conference, the mental health marketing conference, for 6 years. This will be year 7. And then we launched Turn Productions, which is launching new events and conferences, and then helping other companies with their marketing and their events and things like that. And man, I'm in that founder role where, one, I've never worked harder. I've never done more inspired work in my life. Like, I wouldn't replace it for anything, any other role. And at the same time, like, I'm going through that growth process, and those sometimes growing pains of, you want to take care of your team, and you want everybody involved, and sometimes there's all sorts of hard decisions to make.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of natural, though, the same way that, you know there's lots of different ways to get in shape. This is a clumsy analogy, but I think it plays. Like, you can you can do crew, or you can do, weightlifting. There's lots of different ways to get in shape depending on what your end goals are. And there's lots of ways kind of up the mountain, but it's going to be hard and painful. Like, good luck, unless you're like trying to game the system. This is just what you have to go through. It seems
Right.
like it's kind of like the life cycle of, lots of other things. It's just a natural process. At Turn Productions, we craft experiences that connect, engage, and inspire. From dynamic conferences to powerful storytelling, we bring ideas to life through planning, production, and promotion, so your audience doesn't just listen, they remember. Ready to make an impact? Let's build something unforgettable together. Visit turn.productions to get started.
Yeah, I think in life, I know for me, get in shape. It's a great example of getting in shape. I know that getting in shape means routine, consistency over time. There's nothing I'd like to do than go to the gym and leave 10 pounds lighter. Love it. That would be
Yeah.
great. It just doesn't happen, right? So I know that, right? And I know that it's consistency and it's schedule and it's diet, but that's everything, And so, I have realistic expectations about how long it takes to get in shape. But I'll jump over to like work and be like, well, this should be fixed right now, right? With and
Let's
not
do it
have the
tomorrow.
same real. It takes time, slow, patience, the same thing over and over as we
Mm.
retrain the brain. I still do a lot of. So I'm a therapist, right? Still a therapist.
Yeah.
Can't ever shake it. And so I was doing a group last night. I do some groups sporadically just because I love it. I love working with people in early
Love that.
recovery, and we were talking about retraining the brain and how long it takes. And the way to retrain the brain is slowly, consistency, right? And the brain starts to says, oh, okay, life's not as chaotic now, right? And you slowly, same thing over repetition. And for people, especially entrepreneurs, they're visionaries, they're impulsive, they're emotional, and that's what makes them so good, right? So you never
Yeah.
want an entrepreneur and a leader to not be a visionary, but you also need a team of people to be like, hey, we can't do that. Hey, probably not. Hey, let's focus on this first. And then you find the balance, And so for me,
Mm.
I think that you hit ceilings as a company. And when you hit those ceilings, it's okay to reach out and to ask outside people for help that have done it before. That's okay,
Mm.
And I think that that's probably the biggest thing is to be able to break through that ceiling and to reach another one. It's hard to do anything that you don't know how to do without help.
I love
And I
that,
think that
dude. That's
we're able
great.
to as a company, and me as a professional, to be able to at least share some knowledge about, hey man, I've been there, and let me tell you what I did wrong, and then let's find out what we can do right together. But we've had a lot of success in that, and probably the most fun part of my job with Erin Burke, our founder, CEO, my partner, we do strategic consulting together with companies. So a company says, well, we want to grow. Cool, great. Well, what do you want to grow in? Where do you want to grow? Well, let me give you some feedback on what's going on in South Carolina right now. Have you looked at Missouri? Have you looked at Colorado, right? And so we take our data, right, and we lay it out on the table and help people make informed decisions to make decisions based on where they want to grow, because you can make some real bad decisions based on information that you don't have from not having the knowledge of payers of what their behavior is currently in the state, because it's always in flux. So I think that being able to help people, we call it strategic consulting, to be able to even go into a state and be like, should I be in network or should I be out of network? My question is, I don't know. Let's look at the data. Let's look at the call volume. Let's look at the rates. Let's look at the competition, right? Let's look at policies. And then we make a decision based on that, right? There is no one solution when it comes to behavioral
Mm-hmm.
health. There's a lot of factors, and the only way to do it is be able to just have access to data and then sit down and make decisions together, right? And so that's probably one of the most fun parts of the job, is to help people on their growth plans.
Yeah. Man, I was just going to bring up Aaron. had a conversation with Aaron, and instantly, like first 2 minutes, 3 minutes, I'm like, this is one of the smartest people I've ever talked to.
Super
I
smart.
I could just tell right away. Super smart. And a lot of this flows from the top. So the
Yep.
ability, generally in a company, to say, man, you know what? I need some help right now. I need to go out and ask. And there again, just speaking from my own experience, which is limited, I'm in a moment where it's like, when the student is ready, the master appears, they say, or the teacher appears. And some people have walked into my life in the last even 90 days, the last quarter or two, that have such incredible insights into, how to grow a business, from day one all the way to whatever the end game is, or whatever the goal might be, and how to craft, businesses that have, margin for the mission, and that think about people in really caring ways, and also at the same time very effective, efficient ways. So this feels like a lot of this flows from Erin, and I don't know if she named it or not. You could probably tell me that, but Hansi means, and I'll have to read this: reflecting on the past, learning from mistakes, and committing to improvement. Is that, like ingrained to the company, and how? I'm sure it's
Yeah.
ingrained into the company, but how do you see that coming to life? And does that come from Aaron, sort of
Yeah.
guiding the company, or where's that all coming from?
So it's an interesting story, and I have a good story about how I met Aaron. So Aaron's a systems engineer, and you can probably pick that up when you
Yeah.
talk to her. That's how her brain works. And then so Hansa is a term from the Toyota manufacturing, right? And it's about reflecting, always looking at process, taking a step back, seeing where you can improve, make those improvements, taking a step back, looking at constantly identifying and improving. And so it made sense that Hansi would be a appropriate term when she started in 2016. Um, so I met Aaron. So I've in Journey Pure, I met a guy from California, and he texted me out of the blue in 2020, and he says, "Hey, I've got a friend. She has a building company in California, and she's really looking to grow and expand." And I told her that you guys need to talk, right? And I said, "Yeah, sure." And then he sends me a picture of them going to homecoming as juniors in high school together, because they're both from Ohio. Hilarious. So before I even met her,
Mm.
he sent me that picture. He's so funny. So Aaron came out, and I met her in Nashville, and she said, "I really think, to expand, I need someone that's been in treatment for a long time, that's a networker, kind of like a good old boy, that's like, that like fishes and like plays golf." And I said, I feel like this is like a setup, like there's a hidden camera. I was like, I've never been more qualified for a position in my life. I was like, that's perfect, because throughout my career, that's all I've done is I've networked, right? Network and growth and partnered, and so I knew we were going to hit it off, because I always joke that Hansa is the easiest thing I ever sold, right?
Mm.
Because it was an airtight thing. And I said, listen, you don't need sales, right? You just need brand awareness. It sells itself. And so I spent so career development for myself, it's been so much fun, because usually you're always pitching, right? You're
Yeah.
pitching, and there's other people, and you have to be better than them. Well, there's nobody even close to our service. So I've really just focused on brand awareness. So we don't even have any salespeople, right? And
Mm-hmm.
we've grown, 6 times in the last couple of years. We really try to expand the brand, and the brand is, we give free knowledge, right? We want to give the knowledge to help people improve services and work better with payers, right? I think it used to be, put on your gloves, right? We're gonna box the payers, and we're gonna fight them. We sit down with the payers, because we're to the size now. We sit down with payers, and we say, hey, how do we make this make sense, right? So we're not trying to fight, right? We're trying to, sometimes you have to, right? But most of the time we want to just help people understand the processes and the knowledge to be able to know what they're be able to collect in
Mm.
forecast and revenue and run a business. That's what's been so hard about behavioral health is, you don't. It's hard to run a business when you don't ever know what you're going to get money wise, right? I mean, could you imagine? I mean, any other thing, if you were in retail or anything like that, you've got a product, you sell it, you know what you're going to get. In behavioral health, historically, it's been like, you never know what you're going to get. You walk to the mailbox, will there be money in there? Will there not be money in there? Am I going to make payroll? I mean, what a stressful way to live. And so for us, we have the knowledge and the systems and the tools, and we've really built them out to really be able to forecast that so you can run your business, so you can focus on doing what you want to do, which is helping people. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's where we've had the really most success and scale is to, help people solve that issue.
Mm-hmm. And what respect for Aaron to be able to say, "Hey, I need somebody who's a little bit different than me, a little, different." I
Yeah,
don't, I wouldn't know that she'd be. Anyone would call her a good old boy who hunts and fishes. I don't know, but it seems like she was looking for, hey, in order to grow,
that's
I
right.
need something different, and that takes a level of, sort of open-handedness, or open to a different influence, or a new perspective coming in, which makes sort of the whole greater than the sum of its parts. But you see some founders or some companies that it's kind of a stamp and repeat of the leader, and maybe
Yeah.
maybe there's some secret to success to that too. But that's pretty interesting, and I think pretty inspiring. In order to grow at the rate you've done, to bring in
Oh yeah.
diverse
Listen, behavioral
perspectives.
health, it's still very relationship based. I mean, it
Mm-hmm.
is. And I think for me to be able to have the experience to say, hey man, I've been there, right? I've had this many employees.
Yeah.
I've been on the other side of audits, of issues, of
Mm.
sitting there and just not knowing, right, what's going to come in, of rolling the dice and making decisions without the information. I've been there, and it didn't work, and you don't have to do it the same way. And I didn't think in really the last 3 years we've seen a shift in the large parent companies, the national brands say, hey, maybe we're not the best at this. And that's not because they're not smart. Man, it's hard to staff, right? It's hard to get those things. It's hard to have the knowledge. It's hard to keep track of compliance. It's just gotten harder, right? And we've seen the companies that had that kind of humility to say, hey, listen, we don't know what we want to do, but we're willing for you to look at it, right? And those are the guys that have had a lot of success, because they're saying, hey, listen, we're not sure what it is we want to do, but we want to look at it. And I think maybe I can remember in 2017, we said we have to do everything in house because it'll help our valuation. If you do everything in house, it'll help your valuation. What helps your valuation is successful KPIs. It's being able to collect. It's not whether you have an in-house team or not. Same thing with marketing. It's not whether your marketing team's in house or not. It's the metrics around marketing, right? Are you being efficient in your spend, right? Can you answer those questions? And I think that that's really what we've seen in these last couple years, and we're going to continue to see that. Right? We're going to see these large parent companies say, hey, if I can do something better this way, I'm willing to look at it.
Yeah, man, that's interesting. I can't name names, but I was under the hood of a large kind of parent behavioral health company on the marketing side, and
Yeah.
I was surprised to see the opportunities for continued improvement, and measurement and analytics, and then some blocking and tackling that, for a lot of reasons. I usually come into a situation, and there's some exceptions and asterisks to this, but come into a situation saying, if I was on the other side of that table, as because things regress to the mean, especially as you make lots of decisions, I most likely would be doing a lot of the things they would be doing, and I'm curious why. And that opens me up to an empathetic approach to be able to say, I can set my incentives and my defense mechanisms aside and just kind of be curious about where they're at. And it sounds like you all have the capacity to do that on the payer side, which a lot of folks have different opinions about, and some of them set their jaw against payers, and but you're helping to unpack the nuance and the complexity, and when you get down to it, it's maybe not your enemy that you thought it was, and maybe the enemy of your enemy is your friend in some cases, depending on where things are lining up from who's trying to do what.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, once you're able to get under the hood, and you can have a third party come in that's the only thing. Revenue cycle is the only thing we do. Like I don't do anything else. Only behavioral health, right? That's the only thing we
It's
focus
huge.
on. So a treatment center, that's not the only thing they focus on 100 things, right? You're doing this and that and this and that, but it's the only thing to focus on. But once we get under the hood and we look at it, the opportunities for like SOPs or changing workflows become obvious, right? And then we can help say, hey, what about this on the front end? Well, we're seeing some trends here, and we think that if you can improve this part of your documentation or this part of your assessment process, or if you can bill like this, so we're able to share our best practices, and a little fix here, a little fix here, a little fix here. Then the next thing you know, the whole process. I mean, you see a company going from losing 10% a year to making 10% a year, and then now when you're making 10% a year, now you can maybe get more money and you can continue to grow and expand your brand. Now you're looking at M&A, and when we can kind of take somebody and flip them, and it is so much fun, right? Because the overwhelming pressure of having a business that's losing money is just systemic, right? There's fear, there's stuff like that, and I've been there, right? And to be able to be help somebody get on the other side of that, and to be able to grow and expand. I mean, it's just a whole different process, and it's awesome to be able to help people do that.
Dude, I've talked with you a couple number of times, and I met Aaron, and I just believe you. I just 100% believe you. And it's like, and that doesn't matter whether or not I believe you, but I do. I'm just sitting here being like, yeah, I would recommend you all to anybody that I could, because I just and I'm sure, and I know because we've talked about case studies and different things where you
Yeah.
can point to these kinds of shifts where you're swinging the pendulum for these owners and brands from negative to positive with the work you all are doing, and you've amassed an incredibly valuable data set to do that. And then it's interesting to hear Aaron coming in with you on the consulting side. I mean, you all, it makes perfect sense. I'm so glad we're doing this on recording here, but it just makes
Yeah.
sense, and it's kind of eye opening for me.
When we were talking about what we're going to, so at the beginning of MHM, they're like, well, I'm going to have you talk. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. And then I was talking to Carly, our director of branding. I was talking to Aaron. I was like, you know what? I think we should do a panel. And I think that it should be us on the panel. And I think on our panel, we want to talk about turning vision into brand, right? Because I mean, everybody has a good vision. It's like intentions. Man, I've got great intentions, right? But the journey from intention to action, the journey from vision to brand, there's a lot of factors that can trip you up. And so, we're really excited about our panel because for us, culture is really important, right? And we really want to take our internal culture and make it external, right? Of what we do. It's really hard growing a business and keeping the pulse of making people feel like you're still the business you were
Sure.
when you started, and we only had 20 people, right, in an office in Hollywood, right? To be able to keep that, and we put a lot of effort and work and pride in to be able to do that, and running a remote company, that's hard, but everybody's
Mm-hmm.
remote, right? And how do you do that? And we're going to talk a lot about the tools and the stuff that we've learned, the stuff that didn't work and the stuff that does work, of being able to keep that brand, right, and that culture, and then to be able to turn it into externally and to show people. So an exciting thing that we're doing. So every May and September, so it's recovery month and then mental health month, right?
Yeah.
Switch them. And so we do a running walking challenge. So every employee, and I think we have a couple hundred employees, you log through an app how many miles you walk or run, right?
Okay.
Well, it gets pretty competitive, right? And
I bet it
so
does. Yeah.
I'm old, I'm a big guy, right? So I'm not built for miles. You know what I'm saying? I'm built to like play basketball,
I'm a
right?
Clydesdale too.
I'm
I'm
a
with you.
Clydesdale
Yeah.
too. And then and so but I get pretty competitive, and so we will have this competition on the miles, and the more miles you run, the more money you earn, and then Hansi matches it and we donate it to somebody.
Nice.
And this September we'll be donating it to the next door. I mean, and but
Oh
just to think
yeah.
about,
Awesome.
we're helping each other get in shape, even though we're competitive, right? We're helping each other kind of get in shape and get healthy to be better for, ourselves and our families and stuff like that. And then to give it to the next door and organizations that's dedicated to help women like recover and get on their feet. It just doesn't get better than that, right? And so
Yeah.
we're super excited, and we're able to do that. We're able to do that twice a year. May was the first time in the last couple of years that I was dethroned from my number one
Oh,
position. And so I've been training to get back to September 1st to start logging my miles again.
nice. Is this only Hanzai employees?
I mean, listen, if you want to jump in, Steve, let's go. We'll
I kind of want to jump in. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I used
it's
to run a
great.
little bit.
Yeah, so we do. I mean, so it's really, so it's walking, right? So it's just and I can't do 15 at a time because I'll be hurt for like 2 days, right? So you wake up, you do a couple on the treadmill, you do a couple at lunch. So it's really like little that adds up.
It
That's
does.
been my trick, and it's a lot of walking, right? And as
Oh
we get
yeah.
older and our joints, walking starts to make a lot more sense. Walking, hiking, walking
Yeah.
uphill.
One of the best running coaches, Jeff Galloway is his name, has like the walk run method where
Yeah,
you start walking 5 minutes and then you jog 1 minute and then you
yep,
slowly change that ratio over time. But he even encourages some runners to do it mid race where yeah, maybe you log 3 miles and then you walk
yep,
for a minute or something like that. And the ability to have even small breaks. And I'm sorry, I say this all the time, but it's my brother and I are F1 race fans, and he says a quote from Mario Andretti, which is race cars have brakes so they go faster. And it's true. Like you got to take a break because,
yeah,
and just kind of maybe to sum up, like, if you just ran 5 miles every day, that if that's what you wanted to do, and at the end of that, you would most likely, and barring some terrible thing, be way make so much progress,
yeah,
but you can't run 1,800 miles in a day,
yeah.
like you can't, like it's the small incremental marginal gains that you can make when you do 2 miles here and 3 miles there, and that's how you stack those gains.
And that's everything, man. That's just like, I mean, everything we talked about today, realistic expectations, not trying to bite off more than I can chew. Because, I mean, I could sign up for a mini marathon tomorrow, totally ill prepared. And by mile three, be be walking and have the medics keep checking on me and be like, no, I'm fine.
Yes,
I'm fine. And having them
totally.
stop the race before I'm done, traffic, but I think that part of knowing that like it's okay. And like, for me is like to not look at my watch when I'm running. It doesn't matter if I'm 8 minutes or 9 minutes or 10 minutes. Who cares if I run an 11-minute mile? It's fine.
Hmm.
It's fine. I'm exercising, I'm healthy, and I'm getting there. And, to use that as a, analogy for, work and life, like to just enjoy the ride.
Yeah,
I mean, destinations are important. If you don't have a destination, you don't know what direction you're going. But just to enjoy the ride and not be fixated on how long it takes to get there, is something that I've really kind of been focused on.
totally. Yeah, and most amateur runners try to practice too fast. They try to
Yeah,
go too fast, and we all make that mistake. I think in lots of different ways, or we have the potential to make that mistake
yeah.
because we have good intention of wanting to improve as much as we can. Um, that's really great. Well, I love that challenge, and I love the panel that you all have put together because again, there's lots of different ways to define brand. And the one I like best is essentially everything related to what I see about your company,
Yeah.
that I can see from the outside before I engage you is a promise. And that's how I think of brand. My brand is promising you something that if you come through the doors, then you will get these things. And then it's all about, is the brand delivering that promise from your point? From, you can have a vision, and visionaries are wonderful, and you need that to get started. And then you have the outcome, or the successful state of things. And the brand is sort of this bridge, this promise into what to expect. But then what you all are doing is strategy through and through, which I define, or I use the definition of, it's a path to a position of advantage. So, it is a journey that you are
Yeah.
helping these customers on. And brand has everything to do about, hey, this is what we can do for you. And then you get it, at the end
That's
of the
right.
day. It's just the success we all want.
Yeah, I mean, we just want to be a partner, right? And if we can't do it, better or cheaper or anything, we wouldn't expect somebody to do it. We're just looking
Mm-hmm.
to help, and our mission is the same as a lot of missions of people in behavioral health. It's create access to treatment, you know,
Yeah.
and marketing, and especially right now, mental health marketing is a very important part of that right now. So we're excited to hang with you guys in person pretty soon, huh?
Yeah, as we're talking today, it's T minus like 5.2 weeks. Not that I'm counting, but yeah, that clock is ticking, and I'm really excited because we've got you all and maybe 50 other speakers, maybe more than 50, across a range of topics that include, yeah, market strategy and M&A and AI and all sorts of things. So it's so cool to have your perspective and your organization be a part of the conference. Thanks so much. As we wrap, one last question: is there, like, we call this your boost? Is there something you're doing, some kind of practice or some kind of way to care for yourself that maybe you want to mention, that's either working for you or something you may want to explore in the future?
Yeah, I know we've talked about a lot of stuff. I think for me, consistently, it's I'm trying to get 30 minutes of quiet time in the morning, right? Prior to phone, prior to email, prior to anything, is to wake up, get a coffee, and sit.
Yeah.
Really without intention, without direction, and just kind of sit and be. I'm really lucky to have some quiet space, at home, and but just to really kind of just sit, because once you get started, I mean you're in the fast lane in life.
Hmm.
Everything
Hmm.
is, and so if I can, I've had a lot of success personally with being able to have that kind of quiet time. Some days it's 10 minutes, some days it's 15, and some days it's 30. But just the intention to start the day like that has been really beneficial.
I love it. I love it. Yep. Yeah. Sometimes it's what we reduce, what we take away, or just those quiet moments.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, and thanks for being on today, Patrick. This is really enjoyable and educational. I think it'll be for our audience too, which is everything we're trying to deliver here. So I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you. Thanks for making time.
You're very welcome, man. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. All right. Well, that's all for today. Until next time.